Our next guest says the Texas Democratic Party needs a course correction. Texas Democrats have not scored any wins statewide as they have hoped. The blue wave has yet to materialize, and Colonel Kim Olson, a U.S. Air Force veteran, says she can fix it simply because she has run for office before. Colonel Olson, welcome to the program. Let's start out with something you say that you're going to do, and that is you will finally lead the Texas Democrats to win a statewide office, something they haven't done since 1994. My question is one that others have too, though. You couldn't get yourself elected to one of those statewide offices when you ran for Texas Agriculture Commissioner. How do you intend to help anyone else?
That's a great question, Jason, and thank you for having me on board today. I think by running statewide and visiting 244 counties across our great state, what you learned as a statewide candidate is A, how to run on a statewide platform, and B, some of the basically voids that we have within the infrastructure of our respective parties that sit out there. It's my belief that if you really want to win at the statewide, you have to have strong, foundations for these candidates that run statewide to stand on and build their campaigns. And that comes at the local level. Whether you're running for school boards, whether you're running statewide or House seats, you must have strong county parties in order to get the votes out.
One of the biggest problems that Democrats face, as you well know, is messaging. And you said that you would really go after and counter Republican rhetoric. Can you give us some examples of how you might counter that?
That is an excellent question. This is one of the things I hear as I visit with almost every single county chair across the state and get their feedback about what they need, especially in our rural areas. And that sometimes our messaging doesn't resonate with just regular folks. Look, people care about having reasonable education for their children. They care about healthcare, especially on the post end of this pandemic. And number three, they want economic opportunities all across the spectrum. And examples of us is sometimes we're just constantly on the defense instead of talking about all the great things that Democrats bring to bear, like the infrastructure bill, which would bring broadband to places in Texas that we haven't had, which would bring means of moving to clean energy so that jobs aren't threatened across our great state, the number one energy state in the union. This is the kinds of things we as Democrats have to advertise and make people feel safe and good about voting for Democratic leaders.
Well, let's talk about rural counties for a moment. You're joining us from Palo Pinto County, which is to the west of Fort Worth in North Texas. Republicans dominate rural Texas. So how do you convince rural Republican voters to walk away from the GOP and support Democrats?
Rural Texas used to be a Democratic stronghold. And the reason was because Democrats are about the working family, the farmers, those in the field, those that, aren't represented by big corporations. And I think we have to go back to those basics. Again, I'm going to repeat myself here. Folks in rural Texas, the number one employer tends to be school systems. So if you privatize that stuff, that means we lose our jobs. Number two, 26 hospitals have closed across rural Texas. Why? Because we didn't want to expand Medicaid and Medicare. That means people drive for hours to get to a hospital. And that's why rural counties die, is because young families won't move there unless they have access to good education, healthcare, and decent jobs. And the last thing is, look, rural Texas comprises 20% of the voting bloc, and we've been ignored for too long. And that's where we have to start. Jason, we don't have to win every rural Texas. We've just got to cut down the margins and show those that live in rural Texas that we are reasonable leaders that want to do right by their respective families.
Colonel Olson, we appreciate it. We were out of time, but thank you so much and good luck to you.
Thank you, Jason. And you can see more about me at kimolsontx.com. You all stay well and be safe.